They're twisting the text. They are trying to conceal its true meaning. We've heard, but their edits are shallow. The truth will out someday.
Peace of the Lord to all of you. Welcome. So, today we are going to review a particular conversation that happened just a little while ago here at the PBD podcast. This was a conversation with Imam Tawhidi, the Imam of Peace, who doesn't really appear all that much, although when he started talking years ago, people said, oh, he's a Mossad agent and all of those things, and he's a very unique character. So, this is going to be, to a degree, second part from the conversation that we had the other day when we talked about what is happening in Iran. And of course, we have Imam Tawhidi just appearing and talking about things at this exact time. So if you haven't watched that first part about the return of the king, make sure that you watch that one. But anyway, this show will stand on its own. So just to catch up very briefly, something that is happening is you guys are problem solvers because you have higher IQ and education than anybody that came before you in your family tree. And if you find a problem, you're going to find a solution. So the game that we're all witnessing now is they're trying to obscure the problem. And if you don't see the problem, then you cannot find a solution. So what we're doing here on the channel is trying to do the opposite, remove that cloud so that we can see the problem and then we can find a solution before things get more bloody. So Imam Tawhidi. So we're going to see now clips from that particular conversation with PBD, and we will see how much he's saying that it is true and how much is not true. Some of the things that he's going to say, and we will see, is that the Muslim Brotherhood is bad, and you will say, okay, well, that makes sense. He's Shia, so he would say that. But then he would say that Khamenei is a criminal, and that's interesting because, as I said, he's Shia, and if you understand the hierarchy in Islam, you would see how that is a very unusual thing to say. And then he would also claim that Islam has been hijacked, which is interesting, and he is not wrong about that. And then also, he will say that Muhammad is peaceful, that he absolutely was not. So, this gentleman is very unusual. And I'm going to say it right up front, I don't know what his game is. I have spoken with other experts on this matter, and everybody's confused about this guy. For starters, he says that he is a third generation Shia Imam, which to anyone who knows anything about Islam will know immediately that this guy is a liar. Everything that he says is taqiyya, and you cannot trust a single word that he says. He doesn't care about the truth. He only cares about political gain and to push the ideology forward. That's what you would expect, what you expect from certainly an imam. However, the problem is that some of the things that he says, like including criticizing Khamenei, doesn't seem to fit that pattern. Also, this guy seems to be legit. He doesn't look like a liar, and it's an unusual thing. It's kind of weird. I mean, some people are very, very good liars, but generally speaking, if you look at the Dawagandist, for example, or if you look at some of the guests that appear speaking to Piers Morgan, you will see they're evil. You can see that in their faces. You see their eyes. You see they're not okay. And it's very easy to see. For example, with Piers Morgan, you remember when Piers Morgan would ask someone, so do you condemn Hamas? And then that guy would go around in circles, not giving a straight answer. And he would keep on talking and talking. And then after 5 minutes, he would say something like, I condemn the attacks to innocents, to the innocent. And he's like, and then Piers Morgan just drops it. For anyone who knows anything about Islam, we are seeing that and we recognize that is very clearly taqiyya, because that guy is using the word innocent, but to him, innocent means a Muslim, because everybody else are the worst of creatures. They are not innocent at all. So normally, when you understand Islam, you can recognize when somebody is just lying. They are just playing with words. They're doing the whole taquilla game. It's very, very obvious. You just need to know what the truth is of the meaning of a word, and then you can see how they are playing with that. This is not what I see from this guy. That's the weird thing. He seems to really be the real deal. He seems to really believe that Islam is about peace, which is impossible. We have the receipts, we have the sources. There is no way to try to justify that one. So we're going to see some of the lies that he says. But for what it's worth, I feel like this guy is giving us more clues as to what Islam is. We're going to see how he is going to go into this state of cognitive dissonance, of complete denial, that he has already concluded Islam is about peace. So when there is something about Islam that is not peace, that's not Islam. That's what he calls it's been hijacked. I mean, that is actually not true. Islam is what it is. But we're going to see the cognitive dissonance that Muslims actually experience. And I think he is going to be a very, very good example for that. So let's start looking at the video, see what he was saying, and we are going to tear that to pieces. Here we go. So now he's going to tell us what he is.
And my faith, for those wondering, I am a Orthodox Shia Muslim. Orthodox is not an Islamic term, but it is the closest for the listener to understand that I am not a reformist in
He is very reformist. If he's trying to push that Islam is a religion of peace and some of the things that he's going to say later, he is big time reformist. You cannot have it both ways, okay? But we will get there.
Anyway, I believe in reform of societies, reform that does not involve change of religion.
Okay, that's again very bad, very, very bad, because Islam commands to convert everyone to Islam. You remember the three options, okay? Become a dhimmi and convert, or be unalive, be fought, okay? So the Quran very clearly commands for the Muslims to fight everyone until there is only one religion, and that is Islam. That's it. There is no getting out of that. When somebody tells you, no, there is this other verse in the Quran that says that to you, your religion, to me, my religion, that has been abrogated. In Islam, there is this thing called abrogation, which means the later revelations, the later surahs, chapters, they abrogate, they override the previous ones. So we have the verses that say, oh, to you, your religion, to me, my religion. But then there is one that appears later that says, fight everyone until there is only one religion. The previous one, Muslims should never mention, should never actually ever say in public, to you, your religion, to me, my religion. That is a lie. According to their traditions, that verse is abrogated. It does not apply, not even while you are in a minority. That verse is abrogated. It does not exist. So what he has just said is a big no-no, contradicting the Quran. He's Shia, so we'll talk about a little bit about the difference between Sunni and Shia, but it doesn't matter. It's neither here nor there.
So I want religion to remain what God revealed it as and not man-made, because man-made is not accepted within Islam.
Okay, so
okay, that is phenomenal. He has just thrown Islam under the bus. There is no Islam. Well done, Imam Tawhidi, GG. Everything in Islam is man-made. Every single aspect of it. Anyone who is familiar with this channel, which I hope is every one of you, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. Here we're going through the Quran. That is the main focus of this channel is we're researching the true meaning of the Quran, of what it actually said once upon a time. And we have shown countless times that it had nothing to do with Islam. The Quran was created in a Judeo-Christian context. It was all about Jews and Christians from different heresies, from different cults, talking to one another. That's it. There was no Islam. There was no final revelation. There was no Quran. Those things are actually not even in the book. They are just simply mistranslated. Hence why we have shown many times here that the verses that talk about the messenger those things are exegeted as, oh, that's Muhammad. No, it's not Muhammad. If you just read the verse in context, you will see that when he's talking about the messenger, he's talking about Jesus. He was the central character in this book that we now call the Quran. As simple as that. So every single aspect of Islam is man-made, is fabricated. The book was meant to be a collection of stories in the Judeo-Christian traditions, and then they shoehorn a prophet, they shoehorn all of these nonsense stories. If you're not familiar with that, watch our show from the 2nd of January 2026, and that will make it very, very clear. And then everything else that we have here on the channel. But this is now an open secret. Like, we're in the 21st century, a quarter into the 21st century. I don't see why people are still reading Islam into that book. It's literally not there. So when he's saying that Islam, that a religion that is man-made is not accepted, yeah, that is Islam. And it's not like a gray area or open to interpretation. It is clear as day. It is beyond obvious. This is even before going to their traditions. Their traditions, their hadiths, and so on, they make it even more clear. But the Quran on its own just shows how they got one book that was telling one story, and they wrote stories around it. They fabricated those stories in order to make that into their book. Why? Because the Jews had their books and the Christians had their books. And this rising empire did not have a book, and they needed one. So they took one from their competitors and they fabricated the stories around it. Should be very obvious. Let's see what else he's got for us. Oh, by the way, and when he says, I want the religion to be what God revealed, is like, okay, good. Actually, that sounds very good. How do you know? Because all of the information that you've got is from people who were making up stories. We're going to see in a moment how this guy is making up stories again and again, or rather, he's telling one story that is canon, it's already been accepted in the Islamic traditions, but he makes up his own interpretation for it. And he's actually going to give us actually even proof about that, of how they change the meaning of things. It's almost like he's saying, I know Islam, I know it's all about peace. Let me tell you, I know what is the religion revealed by God. So everyone else, every other scholar that by consensus has agreed something else that disagrees with me, those guys are fabricating religion. But trust me, bro, I know the true religion revealed by God. We're going to see, it's going to be quite hilarious.
So the current population of Islam is what? 1.7, 1.8, 1.9 billion.
Climbing up to 2 billion.
Climbing up to 2 billion. Okay.
Okay, not even close. This is another lie that we've been told like so many times. Fastest growing religion, how we're taking over. It's like, no, Islam is the fastest declining religion. We showed a few things on that previous show, the one about the return of the king, so you can go there and see a little bit more about that. But no, look about Iran, the Islamic Republic. Does it look like the fastest growing religion? Over 60% of the people in Iran, they are no longer Muslims. It's not like they are not practicing Muslims, but they are Muslims. No, they are not Muslims, period. 60%. But if you go to any statistics, they will tell you that Iran was 99.5% Muslim. It's like, no, the only reason that in Islam they seem to have such great numbers is because in the Islamic countries, they have to keep their mouth shut. You cannot just go to your family in an Islamic country and say, hey, mom, hey, dad, I have decided to leave Islam. It's not for me, okay? What happened to you? You lose everything in your life, probably your life. It is punishable by death. So the numbers, even in those countries, of people who are pretending to be Muslims is sky high. The thing is, now nobody can say anything. Even in Saudi, the levels of apostasy are ridiculous. But you don't see people going on the street saying, let's end Islam. They know they cannot do it in Saudi. Most of the people there, or tons of people, they're already apostates. Everybody is still pretending. They will still go to the mosque, they will pray, they will say Alhamdulillah 100 times a day. They have to do it for their own safety. But it is the fastest declining religion. These numbers that we are told, 1.8, 2 billion, is not even close. like half it, and then maybe half it another time. It's not even close, okay? I actually want to just pretty much skip to a little bit later on when he is talking about other stuff like Aisha and things like that. But everything that Patrick is saying is really, really important. So I'm going to play that one as well. Look at this.
How many people of the Muslim Islamic community, how many of them view things the way you do?
The answer is going to be no one. Every single Muslim is their own island. Basically, they follow whoever is in front of them. This happens particularly with Sunni. Well, these guys Shia, but the same. If you ask any Muslim, and they will tell you, yeah, we're 2 billion Muslims. And it's like, are you a Sunni? Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like, so the Shias, oh, no. The Shias, they are not Muslims. They are a sect. It's like, okay. What about, and then you start saying groups. If they are from Bangladesh and you say, what do you think about Pakistan? No, they are apostates. Okay. What about the Qataris? No, they're apostates. What about those? They're apostates. If you keep drilling any Muslim on their beliefs, it's going to be, in the end, the religion is what that guy believes and is what his imam has been telling him. That's it. They are isolated like you wouldn't believe. They do not agree on a single thing. And if you've seen the series that we have, like where we're showing the different tafsirs, you see how there are so many interpretations about everything. And every Muslim would actually swear by one of those interpretations of one tafsir writer. But if you go to another Muslim, he's going to swear by a different one. They have zero consensus, okay? But look at what happens next.
I've heard you say about this before. It's not a big percentage of people. But for you, a lot of people call you the Imam of Peace. I think your handle is even Imam of Peace. You may even call yourself Imam of Peace, right? And there's always a confusion between this is the religion of peace, but we saw what happened on 9/11. This is religion of peace, but we saw what happened with Hamas and Israel. This is the religion of peace, but we saw what happened in Australia just recently. This is the religion of peace, but...
Now, that is part of the problem. When I showed before about the problem and the solution, right? Here, Patrick is a very successful individual. He's incredibly intelligent. That's where he should have stopped, right? Is, look, stop saying that it is the religion of peace, okay? Because we've seen all of those things. It is not the religion of peace. I have studied the history. It is not. I have read the hadiths. It is not. Why do you guys keep saying those things? It's quite simple, because the people in the West, we are very naive. When somebody says something, you take them at their word. This is taqiyya, okay? Islam does not come from salam. It's a different word. It doesn't come from peace. Islam is submission or surrender. It's a very different word altogether. The same root, very different words. And the other day I saw on a podcast of some people as well, talking a little bit like Imam Tawhidi in Israel, saying, yeah, but we really want peace because actually Islam comes from salam. It's peace. And it's like, but guys, it's not. Even you as an imam, you're either A, lying, or B, an ignorant. That is not what it means. So here Patrick should have just stopped and says, look, we are not buying this anymore. Stop saying religion of peace. We know the meaning of the word. We know the history. We know the traditions. It's not about peace. Stop saying that. But they are going to continue doing it. It is part of obscuring the problem. For as long as they are telling you, on the one hand, you see with your own eyes, it's not about peace. Go to Boko Haram and ask them, hey guys, what are you doing? Haven't you been told that your religion is the religion of peace? Why are you doing this? I think they didn't get the memo. It is not the religion of peace. So you just have to stop just pushing that silly narrative. It's all about the propaganda. They want you to not see the problem, right? And now let's see how the Imam of Peace addresses the problem.
So, but to me, you seem pretty peaceful.
Very true, and this is what I have discussed with people. He seems the real deal, which is unthinkable because it contradicts Islam. Everything in Islam is different to what this guy seems to stand for.
Me, you give me the vibes that you actually are trying to pursue peace. However, of the 1.9 billion, give or take close to 2 billion, how many of them think the way you do?
Right. So I am a follower of my religion.
That's scary. If he is a follower of his religion, then everything that he's saying is false. Everything is untrue because it's taqiyya. See the problem? That's why I don't think that he's really following the religion. I think he's come up with his own religion in his own head. And then he says that that is what was revealed from God. It's very funny.
And to break it down in such a simple way, I don't think it would be fair for the religion itself or for its adherents, or for countries like the UAE, Bahrain, who are working very hard to establish peace and harmony, or their populations. So the distinction we need to make is between Islam and Islamism.
Okay, so well, that's enough probably BS on that part. There is no difference between Islam and Islamism. Okay, it's the same thing. There is no difference. This is the new buzzword. Do you remember when the Muslim Brotherhood introduced the word Islamophobia to shut down the debate so that people wouldn't actually talk about Islam? If you actually say, hey guys, but you're saying that your book is perfectly preserved, we have here lots of different Qurans and they are all different. And according to your traditions, it hasn't been preserved. Then you are hit with the word, oh, you are Islamophobic. And it's like, no, these people are being lied to and I'm exposing the lie. So you hate Muslims. It has nothing to do with Muslims. It's all about Islam. There is no difference between Islam and Islamism. It is the same. You cannot distinguish them. Remember the video, I'm not going to play it here again, but I did last time, of Asim al-Hakim saying the thing about the three options, right? It's like at the moment we're playing nice, but once we have the numbers, that's when we go on the attack. And then, well, you pay the jizya, or you convert to Islam, or we fight you. Because I gave you two good options, right? It's like, okay, so what is Asim al-Hakim? Is he an Islamist or is he not? Because what he's saying very clearly is we're playing nice until we have the numbers to take over violently. Is that Islamism or is that Islam? Well, everything that he's saying is Islam. Those are the teachings of Islam. If a guy like Imam Tawhidi wants to remove that and says, no, that's not Islam, that's someone hijacked it. It's not about violence. It's like, well, maybe people like Asim al-Hakim shouldn't be on air, shouldn't be saying these things. Why do you have people saying those things? The problem is those things are in the traditions. They are in the history. Everything is there. He cannot remove them. But he seems to think that he can point at someone like Asim al-Hakim, who is saying something incredibly violent and saying, so he's an Islamist. But that's not Islam. It's like, okay, what did he say that is not in your traditions? You see the problem? These people are trying very hard to avoid addressing the problem. And in order to do that, they just throw words at you continuously. Just nonsense. They just want you to go around in circles. Just address it. So Asim al-Hakim says, these people are trying to take over. Fine. What did he say that is not in Islam? What did he say that is not what Muslims need to follow until the day of judgment? What is it? And remember, this guy is Shia. Both in Sunni and Shia, the end of times is supposed to be triggered by Muslims by analyzing all of the Jews. That's what triggers the end of times. Or is that a fabricated hadith? Because if it is, oh, heck, someone should really do something about that and start removing those very violent hadiths. But instead of that, nothing is happening. The traditions are kept as they are. The so-called Islamists are following Islam to a T, and then you have everybody else going, no, we're peace, we're very peaceful. It's like, okay, but your religion doesn't teach that. Trust me, bro. You see how they are not doing anything except for just keeping these things going and hurting more people?
Islam as a religion and Islamism as a contemporary political ideology that uses Islam to gain power.
Absolutely false. These are the teachings of Islam. This is not like, oh, look, we have this religion over there. So we have the Buddhists, and they are all like very peaceful, and they're supposed to spend their whole days with a bowl going Om, And then someone jumped in there and said, "Oh yeah, but when instead of doing Om, you need to just go and put yourself in positions of power in other countries and gain power, and then do this, and then force them all to do Om with the bowl." Okay, and it's like, but that's not what they believe. They believe they just have to do it themselves, but everyone to their own belief. Islam is not that. As I said, the Quran very clearly says you have to fight them all until there's only one religion. That's it, right? So when he's saying people have hijacked the religion, how? What is it that these people are doing that is not in their traditions, that is not in the religion? Hmm? What? Going and putting themselves in places of power? That's in the religion. Playing nice until you have the numbers and then taking over? That's in the religion. What? Getting people who are not okay in the head to do very violent things at the right times to create fear, to strike fear in the hearts of those who disbelieve? That is in the religion. What is it that those people acting out in the West, in order for Islam to take over, are not following Islam? This is exactly what Islam is commanding them to do. This guy is trying to make the difference. He's trying to make Islam being right there, in Mecca, all very nice and very peaceful. And then those who are out there in the world pushing Islam forward, they are the bad guys. And it's like, no, those are literally the ones following Islam to the letter. Do you guys see this? You guys are very educated. You've been here on the channel for a while. You haven't found this channel without having heard about Islam before. You have probably read the Quran, Hadiths. You know these things, right? Am I saying something that is not in the traditions? If you don't believe this, go to the channel of Lloyd de Jong. Have a look at his talks on Sharia, and then tell me that what I'm saying is wrong. Let's see what else this gentleman tells us.
And Islamists are not a monolith. So there are Islamists who believe in participating in democratic principles.
Yeah, that's actually very well explained in their traditions and exactly what they need to do.
You'll find them running for Congress.
Absolutely. Again, gaining power. It is one of the many ways of jihad.
And you have those who will simply engage in jihad, and jihad can be categorized in many, many ways. And I mean violent jihad. I don't mean the struggle of the self against one's desires.
Good. It's very good that he actually said that, because you remember when the same people that tried to sell you that Islam means peace are the same people that told you that jihad actually means the inner struggle against, for your desires. And it's like, that's nonsense, people. We've read the traditions. So even he acknowledges that jihad is actually violent, even when it is about getting political power and stuff. It's like, yeah, look at what happened in Iran. You just play the cards and then you take over, and then the actual violence begins on the streets. Okay, but first it's all, yes, go with the alphabet people, and you are all going to give freedoms to everybody until you take over management, right?
No, I mean going into a society and changing it, going into a community and hijacking their values, and then preventing the host community from enjoying those values, free speech, freedom of religion, expression, and so on.
Okay, so those things are exactly what Islam teaches. Like, you have to actually make all the religion to Allah, and then once you actually have the numbers, impose Sharia. There is no more alcohol, there is no more pork, there is no more freedom of belief, there is no more singing, there is no more music, there is no more women going around without covering themselves or without an escort, etc., etc., etc. That is Islam. This is not some very naughty Muslims who are trying to do that for political gain. They are doing that to advance Islam. And these guys calling them Islamists. They are not Islamists. They are the Muslims who are actually following their teachings. Okay, this is going to be a little bit of fun. Look at this.
Muslim? Do you remember that question?
course,
You
yes.
said, well, one could ask him why he's still a Muslim. And I really think we cannot not answer that question. It's very important. Because it ties into the tens of millions of Iranians who don't say that to America, who don't attend these mosques, who don't attend these rallies. What you're seeing is a few million, fine, 20 million, 30 million. How many millions love Khamenei? 30? Fine, no problem. I'll be generous in my numbers here. But at least half the population is either not practicing or they hate him.
Okay, I really like that. Actually, that sounded very funny. They are not practicing or they hate him. Okay, first, notice how he said at least half of the population. Like the number that is now circulating more and more and people are talking about is over 60% of people in Iran, they are not Muslims. You have seen now what is happening in the Islamic Republic, where they are burning mosques and the whole thing is just a big mess, right? It's not the fastest growing religion. This is one of the lies that are just being told all the time. We addressed that one before, so we're not going to do here, okay? But he's trying to address why is, if he's complaining about these things, why is he still a Muslim if he's complaining about them? Sorry, I'm actually trying to move this thing. Let me just move it like this, a little bit smaller, but like this, you can at least see the channel as well. So this guy now deflects a little bit and says, well, why is he still a Muslim? Well, and then he's saying, but look at Iran. Lots of people, if not the majority of people, they don't follow the religion, they're not practicing, or they hate Khamenei. It's like we are having a big problem here, okay? Islam is set up in a very specific manner. It is about obedience to the leader. That's why the leader, I know this is Shia, but is the normal title is Khalifa, is successor. They have been calling for a global caliphate. That means one guy to rule over everything. That is the setup. There is no alternative setup. Okay, it's not a democracy. Those things don't work. If there is Islam, the goal is to have one caliph, period. Look, for example, Saudi Arabia. If you go to Saudi Arabia, do you really feel very free? Actually, go there and insult Muhammad. See what happens to you. This is what Islam is meant to be. One guy at the top, and then everyone is going to just obey. If you go back and check what has happened in the Islamic history, particularly during the Ottoman Empire, the Ottoman Empire, for me, the best way to describe it is fratricide. Every single caliph unaliving his brothers, or their brothers rally an army and they say, I have the right to rule because of Muhammad, and unaliving the brother for the throne. That's Islam. And sure, you can say the same about any other religion, but we're not talking about any other religion. We're talking about Islam. It has not reformed and it cannot reform. It has been like this since the 7th century. It's about having one guy at the top and then everybody else trying to overthrow him to be the caliph. And everybody claims to have the right because of descendant of either Muhammad or Ali or whatever. It's just the way it is. Now, for example, the Christians, the Catholic Church, they have something, let's say, in place for that. For example, say that at one point they have popes that have been put in there by the kings, because in the end the kings are the ones that rule the land, and they say, we're going to put a puppet, this guy, and he's going to be the pope, but anyway, he's basically doing whatever we tell him to do. Okay, well, guess what? The religion doesn't change, because that guy, he will then be recorded in history as an anti-pope. He was actually placed there as a puppet. He was there because reasons. Once he goes, someone will come around and will actually make sure that things are basically not corrupted, not gone wrong. Okay, that's actually just how it is. If you've known any Polish people, or if any Polish people watching, hello, cześć. So they are absolutely in love with John Paul II because he was like the perfect pope. They had very negative views about some of the popes that happened before him. And then when he became the pope, they love him to this day, and they see him as one of the greatest guys this world has ever seen. Like the real deal, what a pope really should be. Not a puppet, not doing things for, by imposed by the kings from the surrounding areas or anything of the sort. Mm? And so on. But look at how things are now. Things in Christianity have been reformed. Look at all of the Western countries. They follow Christian values, but the laws that they have, they are not Christianity. They are not. They will be based on Christian values, but they don't say, look, this is here in Deuteronomy, so then we have it in our law. It's like, no, they are now secular laws, right? That's just how it is. That's not true in Islam. The laws that they followed, which they call them Sharia, they are set in stone. They cannot change a single thing of it. It is what it is, because they have been telling them for over 1,000 years that those are the laws of God. They say that Sharia is the law of God. If you've read The Reliance of the Traveler, you will know how that is so incredibly far from the truth. It's ridiculous. But that's what they have been told they have to follow. There is no way of reforming that. In fact, a few years ago, MBS did reform that. And I'm still surprised. Lots of people are surprised. It was impossible for anyone to do anything about Sharia. But he appeared and said, okay, we are going to start taking only the strongest hadiths for Sharia. So all the other hadiths that are da'if and so on, we're going to ignore them. And most of the Muslims, they haven't even been told about that, because the way that they've been programmed, they've been told there are all of these hadiths, sayings of the Prophet, which are sahih, that they are the ones that have to be followed. And the da'if ones, the weak ones, they don't have to be followed. And you've heard this in debates with Christian apologists and stuff, when Christian apologists will show a hadith and the Muslim will go, it's da'if, it's da'if, it's da'if, even though it's not, it's sahih. The thing is, even in Sharia, they are taking da'if. Da'if hadiths were never meant to be ignored. This is a 21st century thing, like a cop-out tool they've given to Muslims. If you don't like a hadith, you say it's da'if, and then you move on. It's like, it's da'if. Why do you think it's recorded? They're still using it for Sharia, for rulings, for everything. A da'if hadith was never meant to just be ignored. Otherwise, they would have removed them from their traditions. So the whole thing is really bizarre. But anyway, it's all about a caliphate, having one guy at the top. So when this guy is saying these guys don't like Khamenei, it's like, yes, and so what? For as long as you have Islam, you're not going to have a democratic nation. You're going to have a caliph. You can call it whatever. You can call it Ayatollah, you can call it king, you can call it whatever. There must be one guy that rules with ultimate authority over everyone. That doesn't work well in Islam, because even if you have the nicest guy ever, the next one to come, he might actually be very warlike. And then there goes religion of peace.
Why is that the case? Why are they still Muslim?
Not enough, though.
Yeah, but why are they still Muslim?
I don't know if they're Muslim. Let me give you an idea. I think you said something very powerful today. You said, so to an average Christian, they think every Muslim's read the Quran cover to cover. Okay? So think about it. To the average Christian, what do they think? Oh, you're a Muslim? You've read the Quran, you've studied the Quran, you know everything in the Quran. And you said what? You said, you think Ilhan Omar knows what's in the Quran? She's a ChatGPT Quran person, right? Is who she is. Okay. So.
Okay, that's as well, that is very true. Okay, that's very true. When we see a Muslim or a Muslima, we think they know everything about their traditions and stuff. That is so incredibly far from reality that is shocking. Okay, but let's put it this way. If your friend says that he's a Christian and you say, but are you going to the church? No. Have you read the Bible? And he says, maybe when I was a kid, when my parents told me to go to these things and study, but nah. Ask them. They're not going to be able to even name books of the Bible. They haven't read it. Basically, they are what? They follow Christian values. Hopefully they do. They're trying to have a normal life, but probably the only rule that they follow is don't do to others what you don't want others to do to you. And they think that is Christianity in a nutshell. Okay? Basically, be nice. Right? But when we look at Muslims, we think they know everything for a simple reason. If your friend says that he's a Christian and he's going to the church once or even multiple times a week, and he is going to like Bible study classes and stuff, would you expect that friend of yours to know pretty much everything about the Bible? Yes, that's the thing, because they are putting the time, they are putting the effort. Your other Christian friend who doesn't even know where his church is, he's not going to know anything about Christianity. He's just going to have Christian values and you know. But with Islam, you see them that they actually follow the rules. They actually follow the teachings of Islam. They don't just follow, say, Christian values, right? They will eat with a particular hand. They will probably, you have Muslim friends, they will have Mohammedanist beards. Ask them, why do you wear a beard? Why can't you trim it? And they're going to tell you why. Ask them, do you have tattoos? They're going to say no, because Muhammad said that we shouldn't have tattoos. Okay, and so on and so forth. They are going to the mosque. They're reciting the Quran. They're trying to memorize the Quran. They're praying in Arabic. They don't know anything in Arabic, but they will know how to say a few things, like maybe Al-Fatiha and stuff. So when you look at a Muslim, you will expect him to know at the very least the Quran cover to cover, because they're putting the time. They're going to the mosque. They're doing the recitations and so on. It's like with a Jew. The Jews, they spend every Sabbath together, they switch off all of the phones, and they're telling the stories of the Old Testament. Can you imagine meeting a Jew who doesn't know about the Old Testament? It's like, but are you observing Sabbath? And if they tell you, yeah, I go with my family and we spend Sabbath together and so on, and how could they not know about the Old Testament when that's actually what they are going to be talking about, right? See? So that's the thing, that when we look at Muslims, we expect them to know a lot about Islam, but it's not because of us, it's because of what they look like. You see a Muslima covering her hair and says, okay, so you are practicing Muslima. You got this from somewhere. At the very least, you're going to be very knowledgeable on the Quran. But that's actually not what happened at all. And Muslims, normally, when you ask them just a couple of questions, basically all that they know is the 3 hadiths that the Imams have told them, and they have never read the Quran. You would be surprised to know how many Muslims they have not read the Quran. And those who have read the Quran, they have only read the Quran. They have not read any other books. It's almost like an obsession with the Quran, because that's what the Imam would have been telling them to do. But anyway, let's see actually how this continues.
What do you call those? I think there's a big percentage of Muslims that are Muslim because it's who their father was, it's who their mother was. It's traditionally Muslim. It's not Muslim because they studied all the religions and they chose Muslim. It's because they're traditionally there. Now, for you, third generation, you listen, that's a tradition. I had a guy here who was the fourth generation of Teamster Union. And what about these guys? Middle ones that are good, they're just living their lives. I don't know if they're practicing. I don't know if I would say 50%. I don't know if I would even say 70% of Muslims practice Muslim, their religion. I would say they're just kind of living their lives. And they're not the fanatical. That's not who I'm worried about. That's not who the Westerns or the conservative or certain ideology is worried about.
Okay, those are the ones that the West should be concerned about. Okay? Or rather, they should be concerned about the ideology. What he has said here is absolutely true. Most Muslims, they are not really practicing. Yeah, that's so true. Do you know the Muslims that are practicing? You know lots of them. ISIS, Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, well, the Islamic Republic. I know Shia, Sunnis, they're the same. Okay, let's not go there. The Houthis, Hamas, and Boko Haram, those are practicing Muslims. Those are the practicing Muslims. So this is a bit of the whole problem and ignorance that is happening when it comes to Islam. So we see the peaceful Muslims that they're just trying to get on with their lives, and we make them the example for Islam. And then the violent ones, now they're saying, no, but so the peaceful ones, they are the Muslims. But then the Islamists, those are the bad guys. And those are the ones that we have to be concerned about, because the other ones, they just want to live their lives. It's like, no, you're not getting this. Those peaceful ones, they are the ones not following the religion, but they are in the pool for radicalization. If one of them is going to, if they have the numbers, a lot of those peaceful ones, they're going to radicalize them. Remember, they're going to go to the mosque. They are very subjected, very ready to go into the indoctrination. It only takes a little bit of propaganda, and they will be marching on the streets. It will take virtually nothing because they are already committed to going to the mosque, to doing the repetition, okay? So they can go very easily from level of radicalization 2 out of 10, they can go from level 2 to level 7 in no time, because they have that programming in there, okay? With the stories about Muhammad, the stories of the Quran, and so on. All that it takes is a little bit of push. This is what Islam is. When they have few numbers, everyone is going to be about level of radicalization, up to 3 out of 10. If somebody has mental health issues or something like that, oh no, that guy is going to get to level 9 and you're going to see him in the news. Okay? That's what will happen. If you increase the numbers, they are going to radicalize the so-called peaceful Muslims. They are in the pool of radicalization, okay? These extremists, they cannot radicalize me. They cannot radicalize an atheist. They are not going to do those things. Oh, they're doing a good job with the, leftists, but never mind. But you see what I'm saying? It is the peaceful Muslims that they are at risk of being radicalized when the right time comes. But for some reason, all of these people, they're trying to make the peaceful Muslims the face of Islam and say that is Islam. So what about all of the others that they are really following the religion to such a degree that they are willing to analyze others and to go out with a bang for their religion, and they are not following the religion? Maybe we should look at the religion, because the peaceful ones are going to become not peaceful when the moment comes. It's a cult. That's actually how it goes, one step at a time.
It's the 100 million that fully are the extremists that see the West as the enemy.
Agreed. More than 100 million.
More than 100 million are the extremists, and they see the West as the enemy. Okay, so that's quite nice. 100 million. Where are they getting their ideology from? It's been just hijacked, right? Because it's been the religion of peace. But now you have over 100 million of people who want to basically destroy everything, bring forth the end of times, because it sounds fun. And yeah, so what is it that these 100 million plus people are being taught that is not the teachings of Islam? Why are people not addressing the elephant in the room? What are the people in Boko Haram being told which is not in Islam? Can we address that question? What is ISIS being taught that is not the teachings of Islam, that somebody has hijacked and told them violent things and make them act in the way that they do? What is it, that teaching? Because so far I have read plenty in the hadiths and the seerah and the history books to know full well that what they are doing is exactly what is in the traditions. So can we start addressing the elephant in the room, for God's sake?
More, but there is a. Could we go on Google and just Google for me "in the shade of the Quran"?
Ooh, in the shade of the Quran. So now Imam Tawhidi is going to destroy Islam. Look at this.
There we go. Now, that is the Quran of the extremists. This is my Quran. This is mine.
What do you mean? That's the Quran of the extremist, and you have your own Quran. The Quran has been perfectly preserved to the letter. Also, the Quran says it is perfectly clear. It needs no interpretation or explanation, right? So why what he's pointing at is actually not at a different Quran. He's pointing at interpretation of the Quran. So congratulations, you have just destroyed Islam. The Quran says that it's very clear. If it was clear, you would not need to have different interpretations of it, one very peaceful and one very violent, because the Quran itself says it is very clear, right? And if the problem that we are experiencing now in the world happens to be this book, which, by the way, it was written in the 1950s, 1960s, but the tradition of Islam goes back 1400 years. Okay, there is no difference. The history has been what it's been. But this guy is saying this is what makes people bad. Let's see what else he says about this translation or this commentary.
That is their Quran.
What's the difference, though?
Exactly. Is a highly influential commentary of Quran. By who? By Sayyid Qutb, one of the founders of the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood have their own Quran, Patrick. They don't follow this Quran.
Okay, there is only one Quran, or so we have been told a million times, dude.
And the reason I didn't bring it with me is because it is 30 volumes.
Is that
That is a commentary, not a Quran.
English?
That is English.
May I?
You will. Definitely. Of course. Here. It's English. I bought it in English so you can touch the text because only Muslims can touch the Arabic text.
Okay, this is actually nice. So obviously, Imam Tawhidi has his Arabic one, which is great, and he has just given him the English one. I wonder what translation he's given him. That would be nice to know, right? Because there are many, and here on the channel we have actually shown the problems with the translations and how they are so very different. So now in here we have one Quran in Arabic, one God only knows what translation he's given him. Maybe he will say it in a minute. And he's pointing at the screen at a commentary of the Quran that makes everything very violent. Are you guys seeing the problem? So what is he then proposing to do? Okay, that the Quran that he has in his hands, which is in Arabic, that is the true Quran, and the interpretation from the Muslim Brotherhood, which is on screen, that one is the Islamist. So I know, I have a solution. Let's ban that other commentary. Shouldn't we just do that? It seems like an easy fix, because that other translation or that other commentary is very violent. So now we know the problem, right? That commentary. So why are they not doing it? Why is not the Muslim world, like MBS and everybody else around the world, saying that thing there is making us look bad? That is not the teachings of Islam. That would be the equivalent of Christians going on the streets, hacking people with swords and saying, well, Jesus said that if those who don't have sword, they should buy one. So what Jesus was really commanding was going and hacking people with a sword. See? Yeah, Christians would be up in arms, making those people stop, saying that is not the teachings. You are not following the teachings. You have got a very bad exegete of what that command means, right? Right? That's what you would expect Christians to do. Why are we not having this in Islam? Why are we not having those things that are so extreme actually removed and actually condemned as that's not the teaching? Why don't we have MBS speaking to the whole Muslim world, saying, guys, there are these verses which you guys are exegeting as go and attack people. This is not what it says. You've been lied to. The true meaning is this, and this is what we have to follow. Why is it that everybody's keeping their mouths shut, but when we look at the West, there are people being radicalized left, right, and center, following what? Things that are not peaceful? Why are these people not doing anything? Why is MBS not doing anything? Are you seeing the problem? Because what he's pointing at is not the exegete from some crazy guy. It is telling them what the commands of Islam are. And we're going to see examples.
So I have to clarify this because there are Muslim viewers who will think that Tawhidi gave Patrick a Arabic Quran. So it's in English.
By the way, so you cannot, as a non-Muslim, touch a Quran. The Arabic words in the Quran, yeah, that is very, very pagan, by the way. There are so many things in Sunni as well. You need to analyze someone who criticizes Aisha, according to the reliance of the traveler, is right there. Anyone who says something about Muhammad, anyone who actually draws Muhammad, anyone who touches that, the Quran, or disrespects the Quran, anyone who is not a Muslim and enters Mecca, although now they are letting people in for some reason, all of those things is like, yes, all of this is idolatry like you wouldn't believe, but they say that they don't worship idols. But if you disrespect the Quran, then you need to be analyzed. That is not worshiping the Quran, right? You see the problem? Anyway.
Continue, I'm listening.
Okay. This here is the first time in history that a Quran is interpreted by a man who says, I will interpret it based on my own views.
Not true. Every single time that the Quran has been interpreted from day one has been based on a man doing it on his own views. If you've seen the videos that we're posting now every Thursday, you will see how for single verses, people had no idea what the verses meant, and people were making up the religion by interpreting those verses, by trying to make the book divine. We've seen the verses that say, oh, Mary, sister of Aaron, and how nobody knows what it means. And then they come up with excuses. Oh, that means this. Oh, no, that means this. Oh, no, that means that. They're trying to make it up. The same with the verses that says that Jesus was not on the cross. And then you go to the traditions, everybody's having a different explanation, right? It's like these guys didn't know. Everything in Islam is trying to make the book about Muhammad and about Islam, when it isn't. It was all about a Judeo-Christian belief. Nothing to do with Muhammad, nothing to do with Islam. So every single time that anything has been exegeted about Islam until now, everything has not been in telling you what the text says, but what the political view is, and pushing it into the text, which is what we do here on the channel. So what he has said, 1000% wrong. Every single time in history, the Quran has been interpreted by people with having no regards for what the text actually said. It was all about pushing a political view into a book, such as denying the Trinity, when the Quran keeps talking about the Trinity all the time, and these sort of things. Look at Surah 58, verse 22 for an example.
Based on my own understanding. Because how does Quranic interpretation happen? I need you with me.
Tell me, how does it happen?
It happens when the verses are measured against other verses or against other teachings of the Prophet.
Okay, verses against other verses. Our show from the 2nd of January, we show that Surah 355 says, Allah said to Isa, I will make those who follow you superior to those who disbelieve until the day of judgment. So that's it. That's unqualified. We know that this was all about Jesus and about those who follow Jesus. And those who follow Jesus will be superior to those who disbelieve until the day of judgment. Those who follow Jesus, not the one that comes after Jesus, not somebody else, but follow Jesus. So by the time that we get to Surah 7, 157, and it says that you have to follow the messenger who is in the Torah and the Injil, who makes things lawful and unlawful, is like, fine, so this is Jesus. It says very clearly, follow the guy who is in the Torah and the Injil, and you will be the successful. That is what Surah 7, 157 says. And what all of these scholars have been saying, that's Muhammad. No, it's not Muhammad. Like, what did Imam Tawhidi say? You have to judge verses with other verses and the teachings of the Prophet. Forget about the teachings, those comes hundreds of years later. So, Surah 355, the messenger is Jesus, and those who follow him will be successful. Surah 7, 157, the messenger is Jesus. How it's been exegeted? That is Muhammad. No, it's not Muhammad. It's never been Muhammad. That is silly. Also, you compare verses with verses. Okay, Surah 7, 157 says that the messenger makes things lawful and unlawful. When we go to Surah 350, we see that Jesus makes things lawful and unlawful. The text was all about Jesus, and they've changed everything. He has just told you how you are supposed to exegete the Quran. But every single Islamic scholar has done the polar opposite of what he is saying. Every single one from day one. Do you see this? I hope this is clear. Let me know if it is not.
Okay.
Or through scholarly consensus.
Scholarly consensus means you get the biggest bunch of liars, like the levels of Ibn Kathir together, and they sit down and they say, what do we do in order to make this still be a holy book? How do we do it? Okay? And then they come up with a lie. The consensus is a lie. Let me just show you, Okay, let me just expose this. Okay, let me expose this scholarly consensus real quick. So Surah 48, verse 9, okay, in the Quran. This is a very, very clear verse. Following Arabic grammar, what this means is here you have a literal translation from ChatGPT or something. You can just do it yourself. You can do it at home. It doesn't change anything, okay? It is very clear. So that you believe in the God, Allah, and his messenger, and you support him. According to Arabic grammar, when you have an expression like this, okay, so Allah and his messenger, and then you go and you support him, it's the last person that is mentioned, is the last noun. So his messenger, so you support him, the messenger, you honor him, the messenger, and you glorify him, the messenger, morning and evening. This is what it says in the Arabic. It is very clear and it shouldn't even be questioned. This is what the Arabic says. The scholarly consensus that he's talking about works like this. You can support the prophet. You can honor the prophet, but you are not allowed to glorify the prophet because that glorify him morning and evening, only you can do that to God. That's why. So here in the Arabic, we have Allah and his Rasul, and then you have these three words, all joined with and. All of these three words, they go back to the Rasul, the messenger. This was a Christian text. When the messenger is Jesus, you have no problem. Well, support him, honor him, and glorify him morning and evening. No problem. To the Christians, you can glorify Jesus because Jesus is God. In Islam, you cannot do that. That is called shirk. That is the greatest sin in Islam. But this is what the Quran says right here. So what do we get? We get in the translation from Sahih International, look what they do. In order to change the meaning, that you may believe in Allah and his messenger and honor him and respect the prophet. Now he's adding the word the prophet. There is no prophet in here. These words are not in the Arabic. And exalt Allah morning and afternoon. That is not in the Arabic. This is not what the Arabic says at all. This, when he's saying scholarly consensus, do you see the problem? It is you get a bunch of liars and they try to edit the meaning of the text so that it's no longer Judeo-Christian, that is now about a guy called Muhammad, who is not in the verse. He's never been in the verse. We look at the tafsirs. What do we get? The same blah, 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 blah. Leave it there. If you want to actually read it, we've done it in other shows as well. Blah, blah, blah. In addition, it is mentioned that the believers must be characterized by three more qualities. That they should support him and revere him, the prophet, and pronounce his purity morning and evening. You see how they put Allah's in there? It's like that is not in the Arabic. That has never been in the Arabic. So when he's saying you have to judge verses by other verses, that is very true, my man. This is what we are doing now. Your guys are not doing that. They're making up excuses. A scholarly consensus. Sure, do you call scholarly consensus to get a bunch of liars who see this verse that originally very clearly meant Allah and his messenger, with the messenger being Jesus, therefore you can glorify him. And then they say, oh no, hang on a minute, this is not good, because if we glorify Muhammad, that means we're committing shirk and the whole house collapses, right? So everything that this guy is saying, some of the things that he's saying, they are correct. This should be scholarly consensus. And you should actually check these things with verses, verses against verses. But this is not what they have done. It's the opposite. They have ignored what the Arabic says. They have pushed a completely different narrative on top. And the scholarly consensus has been, this is what we are going to say this means. Otherwise, we unalive you all. Hence why it says the verb, it uses the word tawafa next to Jesus. And immediately after, in the traditions, they're denying that Jesus died. It's like, but you're using the word tawafa next to Jesus. You cannot have it both ways. If you wanted this book to be very clear and you were going to deny the death of Jesus, you would never use the word tawafa. That is insane, right? So do you see some of the things that he's saying? They're right, or rather, this is how it should be done. But this is not what they have done at all. They have done the opposite. It's about pushing a narrative, and we are sick of it. Okay, so the next bits are going to be fun, and then it's going to be a think about Aisha, and that's where we're going to conclude. But the next bits are going to be, I think, very, very fun. So let's look at this.
Or either through qiyas, which is analogy.
Still actually talking about how you interpret the Quran, analogy. You have heard this if you've seen Christian apologists speaking with Muslims, and when there is something that doesn't make any sense, they will say, it's an analogy, it's a metaphor, it's whatever. And it's like, yeah, right. Yeah, we'll have a lot to say about that. Basically, still anything that has to be said in order to maintain the book as divine, which is just not going to fly.
Or through rational approaches. When it comes to the Quran of the Muslim Brotherhood, it is the first time in history that a guy says, I will interpret it the way I want it interpreted.
Nope, it's not the first time. It's like literally every single time the Quran has been interpreted based on the guy wanted to make the book divine. We're in the 21st century, and it's the first time that we are doing what he said before, looking at verses against verses against verses and seeing what the original meaning was. And it is different to everything we have ever heard from any Muslim scholar. The Muslim scholars, they were pushing an ideology. They did not care about the book at all.
And I do not care what the Quran says in other places, and I do not care what it says, what the Prophet says. This is not.
The Prophet says, in order to do that, you have to go to the Sunnah. He is a Shia. That's already problematic, as we're going to see. But when he thinks the religion that is revealed by Allah, and he's like, fine, but then you need to take it from what? The Hadiths. But you're not going to take all of the hadiths. We can show you quite a few that you are not going to agree with. So you cannot even tell which hadiths you like and which ones you are going to just basically hate, and you're going to say that they are not valid, even though they are sahih. When it comes to the narrations, to the hadiths, everything falls to pieces because they cannot go and accept all because the whole thing collapses. They really need to pick and choose. But this thing about getting verses like this is the first time that somebody just interprets the Quran in whichever way they like, dude, no, like this is actually what we're doing now. We are actually looking at the verses and putting them together, and we are telling you it tells a very different story. So everything that he's saying, it sounds great. This is how it should have been, but that's not what it's been at all.
Unacceptable. That is the Quran of the Muslim Brotherhood.
Okay.
Ask me your question.
No, but to me, it's kind of like saying, Joseph Smith kicked out in the
Joseph Smith.
That's where they build their thing. So translation, okay? But if you go is Prophet Muhammad, is that fair?
The face of Islam.
Face of Islam is Prophet Muhammad.
Correct.
Who is Prophet Muhammad to you? You seem like a very reasonable guy.
Correct.
Who is he to you?
The messenger of God.
He's the messenger of God.
Correct.
Okay. Tell me, you know, to you, what you admire about him the most.
Everything.
Now, this is where things get interesting, because this is now when he shows that he has this deep denial of what the sources are. He's going to describe Prophet Muhammad, and if you pay attention, he's actually describing Jesus. This is how Islam is basically built. They tell Muslims that Muhammad was perfect, absolutely perfect. He was sinless, everything. There is nothing that he could have done that is bad that you could say that was bad. And once that is programmed into him, he believes that Muhammad is Jesus, basically. That's it. So when he hears something that is not good, his conclusion, his emotions take over, which is Muhammad was perfect. That instruction is not perfect, so it couldn't be him. Therefore, it has to be denied. But the person that he describes as perfect is Jesus every single time. See, this is the emotion. This is what makes Muslims, when they are confronted with hadiths and things like that, when they will hear a hadith that is very bad, and they will go, it's daif, because what has been programmed into them is Muhammad was perfect. There isn't a single bad thing about him that happened. So if you hear something, even if it's from the Islamic sources, that is less than perfect, it's not him, it's a fabrication. So the emotion towards this perfect individual overrides everything that you have in front of your eyes. And here you can see from a third generation Imam doing that. What do you admire about him? Everything, absolutely everything. He's perfect, absolute perfection. He's like, really, my man, because I've got the sources. So every time that there is something that is less than perfect, it has to be excused. And we have discussed many of those here on the channel, and plenty of hadiths that makes Muhammad not being perfect, right? But let's continue.
Please unpack that.
Okay. The Muhammad that the West has been introduced to is not our Muhammad, the Muhammad of the Quran. Very important. And please.
That is very true. The Muhammad of the Quran is Jesus, because the Quran has nothing to do with Islam. The Quran was Judeo-Christian, believing in the Messiah. Basically, Jews who accepted the Messiah, and some of those writings, they happen to now be collated in a book that you call the Quran. There is nothing to do with Muhammad. So when he says the Muhammad of that we have been introduced is not the one in the book, he's 100% right. The one in the book is Jesus. The one that we have been introduced is the religious element, right? This is just what it is. I think we have proven that countless times here.
Please, Patrick, ask me any question. And if you feel I haven't answered you, please go back and make sure that you're satisfied with my answer. I'm not here to evade anything, so please.
Although the moment that he says, I'm not here to evade anything, his voice is changing. He's like, he knows that there is trouble. Because when he's saying the version of Muhammad that we have been introduced to is not the one in the book, yes, he is right. But he seems to think that the one in the book is the one in the narrative, but everything bad in the narrative is false. It's like, no, you are creating your own religion. This is not what happened, okay? So are we seeing the problem there? But he has now been convinced that Muhammad was perfect. By the way, how that came to be is quite simple. Muslims, they had to be told that for a simple reason. We had the big prophets in the past, right? The big ones. So we have Moses, and Moses, he starts analyzing a guy. So he was less than perfect. Although then when you get to Islam, they will say every prophet was perfect. And he's like, no, we know that Moses was very far from perfect. He was a man struggling to do an incredibly big mission, okay? All credit to him. Nobody would like to have the mission of Moses. Certainly I wouldn't have liked to have that mission, okay? But he is less than perfect. He starts analyzing a person. He makes mistake after mistake after mistake. He really tries very, very hard. It's part of his whole arc. But by the time that we get to Jesus, he's described as perfect. Even according to Islam, Jesus was sinless. His mother was sinless. His family tree was sinless. Everyone was sinless. But Jesus was perfect. He performed miracles and so on. They cannot go from a guy who is sinless to Mohammed, who is a warlord, as described by Jordan Peterson, right? So they tell them, if Jesus was perfect, Mohammed had to be perfect too. He has programmed himself that into his head. It's not true. That is not in the traditions. He's having this disjointed opinion. On the one hand, maybe he's recognizing that the things written in the book, they are not violent because they weren't initially, and you have to speak the Arabic, and you need to basically you have to remove the diacritics to begin to understand the Quran. And it was not as violent as it is now. But in order for the book to not be violent, you have to accept first that you have to remove the diacritics, the hamzas, a lot of the alifs, the all of the vocalization. That you have to understand that lots of words are not even in Arabic to begin with, that they are borrowings, and you have to accept that there are lots of interpolations in the text, in order to get to the original form, which was 100% peaceful. At the moment, it's not 100% peaceful. A lot of things have happened to that book. See what else he tells us.
Just so you know, you don't give me that vibe at all.
Okay.
So you don't even have to explain yourself.
You.
Yeah.
Thank you. Arabia needed monotheism. This was a society that was worshipping dates and stones and
they were worshipping stones. Yeah, in Arabia they were worshipping stones. Well, fortunately, that has not been carried over, right? Sorry.
burying their daughters alive, worshipping idols. The tradition of Abraham was corrupted in Arabia. We call this the time of ignorance, Zaman al-Jahiliyyah. God sent a man, we believe, in the same way he sent Moses and Jesus. His name is Muhammad. He sent him to Arabia not to start a new religion.
Okay, by the way, big problems already. Big problems with the narrative. First of all, now we are finding out that by the time of Muhammad, the Arabian Peninsula was not pagan anymore. So all of these things that he's described, they are in the history books, but all of those things come from Islam because of the religion, because the Quran seems to be talking about the three daughters of Allah and so on. Those are the stories that they created in order to justify the religion. And that is in the history books. But now we are doing the archaeological work. And it turns out that's not the case. The Arabian Peninsula had been Judaized and it had been Christianized. Make sure that you watch the videos that we have with Kalam, who is exploring the whole Abyssinian kingdom influence from 100 years prior. The whole region had been Christianized. Okay, so all of these things about the time of ignorance, that they were pagans and doing these things, that's not true. It's in the traditions. It is just not true. It did not happen. But notice this as well. He said, Muhammad was sent to the Arabs, just like Moses and Jesus were sent. And remember, the Quran says that we do not send, we basically send to every nation a prophet that speaks their own language, something along those lines, right? Okay. Moses, I don't think anyone would deny, he was sent to the Jews because he rescued them from Egypt. So now we have Moses who was sent to the Jews, great, to the Israelites. Great. Then on the other side of the spectrum, we are having Muhammad speaking in Arabic being sent to the Arabs who speak Arabic. Okay, so who the hell was Jesus sent to? Huh? Do you see the problem? This is how you're joining the dots with the whole Quran. That means that Jesus was sent to someone speaking in their own language. So who was he sent to? Was he sent to the Jews as well? Because the Quran says that Jesus and Mary, they were assigned to the worlds. Even the Quran says that Jesus was not sent to the Jews, but to everybody. Notice how that then is changed in Islam, and they make Muhammad being the one sent to everybody. That is not Muhammad. It was never meant to be Muhammad. It was meant to be Jesus sent to everybody. But once you have the last guy in Arabic, you also have to say fine. So he has to be for everybody. But that's not the case. The Quran is supposed to be still in Arabic. You're supposed to pray in Arabic. You're supposed to send prayers to Muhammad every single day in Arabic. So he's certainly not sent to the whole world. But again, who was Jesus sent to? And I don't know if anyone who has been following the Christian Prince recently, he's started to use one argument. Maybe he used it in the past. For me, it's the first time I've heard it, that I really, really like. He's been saying to Muslims that the word used for the gospel in the Quran is Injil, which is a Greek word. So he's been saying to Muslims, so according to you, Jesus was sent with the Injil, which is Greek, which means he was sent to the Greeks. It's super fun to unpack it in that way, because why would you use that word? It's an actual Greek word, right? It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. So, but no, so who was Jesus sent to? To the Jews? According to the Quran, he was sent to everybody, him and his mother as well. So there you go. Interesting. And Muhammad was sent to the Arabs. Let's see. Maybe I'm going to skip a little bit of the whole explanation of what he says, but let's see.
But to continue the religion of previous prophets, Moses being, the final Jewish prophet, and Jesus being the messenger for the Christians. Now,
to the Christians, who are the Christians? Is that a race? You see, sorry, I should have actually mentioned that right here. So you see, Moses to the Jews, and then when it says, and Jesus to the Christians, but who are the Christians? Is that ethnicity? You see how it doesn't make any sense? Like the Christians, they are supposed to be everybody. It's supposed to be everyone who is not a Jew. It's supposed to be all of the Gentiles. Although, of course, Jews can also become Christians. See? So we have at one end Moses being sent to the Jews, on the other one Muhammad being sent to the Arabs, and in the middle we have Jesus being sent to the Christians, but there is no Christians. There is no such thing as Christians until they start believing in him, and he's believing in him. Okay, so the whole thing is a little bit of a mess, isn't it?
You may believe him to be the Son of God.
Mhm.
I see him as a prophet
In the Quran, it says that he is the Son of God, but never mind.
of God. But what we agree upon is that he was a messenger of God. What he came with came from God, came from you call him the Father, I call him Allah.
He's also right about that. When the Quran talks about Allah, that's the Father. And when he says that he's the messenger, is yes, when you see in the Quran the messenger, his messenger, and the Messiah, and all of these things, it's all about Jesus. Hence why he's called the Word of God according to the Quran.
The Prophet Muhammad, you may read the Quran that he came down with. And we say he came with, but it was revealed to him.
Okay, another problem. The reason that he says that is because in Surah 7, verse 157, it says, basically, believe in the light which was sent down with him. So these so-called scholars and consensus, which he was talking about, they see when it says light, and they say, well, that has to be the Quran. And sent down with him, that means that, well, he's sent down and the Quran is sent down with him. This is how they are exegeting this, which is fools. The Quran tells you that Jesus is the word of God, a spirit from him. This verse is telling you clearly, following the light, which is the spirit, which was sent down with him, with the messenger, who is the word, is right there. If you just look at the correct verses, everything makes sense. So even now, he gets there and says, of how the revelation happens. By the way, in Islam, nobody knows how the revelation happens. But if you speak with any Muslim, they will swear what the revelation was like. But if you go to the sources, you will see how they will have different interpretations, including Muhammad getting the full Quran during the night journey, which happens 10, 11 years after the first revelation, also all in one go, also when it was put to him, washed inside with the angels, also one at a time, the whole thing. But every Muslim will tell you, and they will show you one hadith that says, this is what happened. It's like, but don't dig, because you will find other explanations of what happened. And the reason is, it did not happen. All of these things are stories invented much later to try to justify what the Quran says. And like I said, Surah 7, 157, is about Jesus. They have to make it about Muhammad. So when it says light that was sent down with him, all of a sudden that becomes the Quran being sent down with Muhammad, who is up above. And it's like, no, the Quran told you that the messenger is the word of God and the spirit was sent down with him. GG.
So it did not come down as a tablet, it came down as verse by verse, or certain verses together. His focus in Arabia was monotheism. Who is God? Who is our creator and our responsibility towards him? That's it. That is the main fundamental pillar of the message of the Prophet. Do not worship idols. Do not worship idols that you create with your own hands. And when you get hungry, you eat them out of dates and so on. Do not have sexual relations with your parents. Do not kill your parents. Do not murder the innocent, for example. Respect the basic Noahide laws. This is exactly what our Prophet advocated for.
Okay. That is, let's say, somewhat correct, except that the same people that told you that Muhammad was doing those things are the same people who told you that he was okay with an old woman being strung up between two camels and having the camels run in opposite directions. Okay, this guy is picking and choosing what he wants to believe. He has just thrown out 99% of the hadiths. This is what he has just done, and has taken the ones that are not horrible and says, okay, well, you see, he was just carrying on the traditions from the Abrahamic faith. But this is absolutely not true. If there was a guy that wanted to bring that tradition to the Arabian Peninsula, which was already there, as I've mentioned, then he would be following the Old Testament and the New Testament, as the Quran says, following the previous scriptures. But the previous scriptures contradict everything that the Quran is saying. See, the problem is the whole Islamic dilemma. The Quran is saying, follow those scriptures. And when you do, the Quran is false. So you cannot get out of it. That's why when we get to Ibn Hazm, he will be, okay, they have corrupted their scriptures. But that's not true. The answer is a lot simpler than that. Every time that the Quran says, follow the scriptures that came before, it doesn't mean the Injil and the Torah. Every single time it means something. Sorry, when it says that something confirms what came before it, that is exegeted as the Quran confirming the gospel and the Torah. And that is not true. It doesn't do it. So the clear and obvious answer is, when the Quran says something confirms what came before it, it's talking about the Injil confirming the Torah, which it does. And why would they be using that kind of language? Because it's talking about the Bible, where you have the New Testament, and at the back of it, what do you have? The Hebrew scriptures. If you are in doubt about this New Testament, go and speak to the Jews. They're going to tell you they have the same scriptures. They haven't been corrupted. They're going to tell you the same. They're going to exegete them differently. They're going to tell you it means something else. But you will see how they are the same ones. We just interpret them differently. This is the whole point of the Quran. But you can see here he would go, no, Muhammad actually came there to just say that the Abrahamic faith is like, but everything that he's saying is against the Abrahamic faith. That thing, do not do jiggy jiggy with your parents. I think you've heard enough about what is happening in Islam. because the same Quran says that a man is allowed to have jiggy with that which his right hand possesses, which it is exegeted as slaves. But actually it goes further than that. What your right hand possesses, it means your property, everything. That includes, if you are a man, your daughter, because she's in your custody. Also your sister, if you are looking after her. And also your mother, if you are looking after her. This is how it is exegeted. Now, you go to Muslims in the West, they are going to say, absolutely no, that is not the case. But if you go to places like Pakistan, that is how it is understood, because it is unrestricted. The Quran, it says, everything your right hand possesses. So if you, how many stories have you heard in Islam of people like that doing these sort of things to their daughters, sisters, mothers? Why? Because those people are not okay in the head. It's like, no, it's because they are actually following what the Quran says. But we live in a world where everybody wants to now exegete things in the best possible light. Why? Because you've seen what he has in his head. Muhammad was perfect. So he couldn't have said that you are allowed to do jiggy with the women in your family if you are the one that provides. He cannot exegete it in that manner because he's concluded Muhammad was perfect. But that contradicts what the book says, which is actually very, very clear. See? Okay, so let's see a little bit of coping here.
So Aisha, how do you process that?
Aisha was not married to the Prophet at a young age. She was an adult.
And I've heard you say this before.
She was an adult.
Do you know how many people who are Islam, Muslim scholars who do the complete opposite, who don't even debate it?
Right.
But you debate it.
They're preachers. They're not imams. They are preachers. The son of an imam is not an imam. Just because your dad has a mosque and leads prayers and gives you the microphone to speak, it does not make you a theologian.
If the average person goes and checks to see, by the way, let's do this. Let me ask the question in a different way.
Right.
If he did marry Aisha at 6,
Right.
if he did consummate at 9,
Right.
would you still be a Muslim?
The thing is, he would never do that.
No.
Okay, so you see, here we have it. By the way, he said, oh, they are not, again, the call to authority. Those people are preachers. They're not imams. Yes, because somebody is a preacher, is not an imam. It's like, yes, my man, but you are a preacher. Because what you are saying now is you're trying to push your beliefs, which are not true. They're absolutely not true. It is set in stone, the age of Aisha. Just the other day, on the last video that we had here, we actually showed some of the sources. We've shown some of the hadiths. So this has not even been a matter of disputation or disagreement in Islam over the last 1,000 years. It is established. The age of Aisha is established. Do you remember? Do you guys see the videos from Yasir Qadi, when first he was saying that, oh no, Aisha was, an adult, and then when the whole thing just, there were too many hadith showing to the public, and people going to him and saying, so, and making excuses. No, maybe she was 18, maybe she was 20, maybe, and actually him being there on the podium telling to people like, guys, come on, let's just not be embarrassed about this. Let's stop trying to make excuses. It is what it is. It is established. The age is established, period. So why are we here in the 21st century and for the first time in history is a problem? And he's trying to cope. Now, he's Shia, which means he can look at the hadiths, which are Sunni, and he can remove all of them. But he's still taking some of those hadiths to know what Muhammad says. If it says, no, we have our own hadiths in Shia, it's like all of this is nonsense. The hadiths in the Sunnah, they are very clear. But you may have seen as well very recently a debate between the apostate prophet and Junior. And Junior debating, no, she was not a child. The reason that the hadiths say that Aisha was playing with dolls, the reason is Exactly because she was an adult. Because in Islam, children can play with dolls. But once a girl has reached puberty, she's not allowed to play with dolls. That's why it's in the hadith. Because despite of her not being a child anymore, the Prophet allowed her to play with dolls. That's why it's recorded in that manner. You see? So the fact that it says that she was playing with dolls, which tells you she's a child, they interpret that as no. The reason that the hadith says that she's playing with dolls is because it was odd. That's why, because she was already an adult. Guys, this has never been a problem in the last 1400 years. Check when the age of marriage changed in Islamic countries. Just check. Why is it that we still have so much marriage to even prepubescent girls in lots of Muslim countries? Why is it that in the Reliance of the Traveler, there are very disgusting things when it comes to that particular problem? I don't want to say too many words, okay, but you know what I'm saying. Why? Do you think this is just a coincidence? So on the one hand, no, Aisha was an adult. But then on the other hand, we see that for over 1,000 years in Islam, marrying a prepubescent girl has been fine. If you don't believe me, ask Daniel Hakikachu. It's been normal. It's been standardized and it's been in their legal system. And the age of consent has only changed very, 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 very recently. And in only some of these countries, in not all of them. So all of that comes from where? From caliphs, nothing to do with Muhammad. Somehow, all of those things have always been taken all the way back to Muhammad, and that men could do it because of Muhammad. And the Taliban and ISIS, particularly, they do that a lot because of Muhammad. And now this guy turns up in the 21st century saying, no, she was actually not a child, she was an adult. It's like, you are creating your own traditions and you are just lying through your teeth. But the reason is, we have seen it. He has told himself, Muhammad was the greatest man that has ever existed. So when they show all of the evidence that he married a child, you have to deny all of that evidence because you've been told Muhammad was perfect. That overrides all of the other evidence in front of your eyes. It's like they have put in their heads that Muhammad was Jesus, perfect in every single way, like really God on earth. That was Muhammad. And then they show all of the things that Muhammad did, and because that contradicts that feeling that Muhammad was like Jesus, but better, then okay, all of the data has to be false because it cannot be. I know he's perfect. It's like all of the evidence is telling you that you've been lied to, that he wasn't perfect, that he's a warlord. Even Jordan Peterson had said that.
Right. He would never do that.
I'm not asking that question. If your prophet, if, this is an if, it's a key word, if he did marry a 6-year-old, if he did consummate, which means, have sex with somebody at night, that some people would, define that as rape. They wouldn't even consider that as sex. If he did, would you still be a Muslim? Would you still see yourself as a Muslim yourself?
Patrick, I'm not running away from the question. I swear on my life and on my mother's life. I'm telling you, when you say prophet, to me it means an infallible being that does not make a mistake or make error.
Exactly. So do you see how he is describing Jesus? This is what they have put in his head. Can you imagine you go to a Christian and says, oh, but did you know that Jesus married a 9-year-old? What are they going to say? You are insane. Like, absolutely not. Huh? They're not going to even consider that for a second. But imagine that. You say that to a Christian. A Christian will say, yeah, give me your source. Do you have a source? Do you have anything at all? Because that is insane. Jesus was God incarnate. He was perfect. He didn't marry. He didn't have descendants. Certainly, he wouldn't actually do that. In fact, look about what he said about those who had little kids. So that is what the Christian would tell you. Then it will be up to you to show some sources that say otherwise. But do you see how Imam Tawhidi just reverts back to, he's perfect, he's infallible human being, he couldn't have done it, he couldn't have done it. He's like, yes, sir, because the guy described in the book is Jesus. So that's why it has been all too easy to put into your head that he was perfect, sinless, and so on. So when you get outside of it to the traditions, you see that that's not the case, that you are dealing with a warlord.
It doesn't make sense.
Then let me ask the question in a different way. Okay. You're born into a family.
And now he's just going to ask him, so you are saying this because you've always been a Muslim, but if you weren't, if you had been born in a different family, and then he will say, I will still end up being a Muslim. And he's like, oh, come on, you are just, it's part of the programming. And we can see here from a guy who is probably a very nice guy, but his denial, his cognitive dissonance is on a whole different level. And we see this with Muslims all around, but I think it is very, very obvious when we see someone like him. By the way, I think this guy is a little bit like Yasser Qadi. Yasser Qadi, when he has slipped up with things, I think it's because inside he's a very nice guy. This is my take. I could be wrong, and maybe he's a horrible human being. I think he is a very nice guy. He realizes that he's always been preaching. He's now realized that the whole thing is a mess, but he's conflicted between the two. And then he has all of these Freudian slips where he will just throw the isnad under the bus and the preservation under the bus and these things. And it's because he knows the truth. He knows the whole thing is nonsense, but he's been programmed. I have to preach. Okay. So I think something similar happens with this gentleman here.
I said, if it was proven that the founder had done that, would you ever accept that religion?
No, of course not.
You wouldn't?
No.
Okay, beautiful.
But again, the Prophet, for us, when you say Muhammad, you know what I process? An infallible human being that does not make mistakes at all or any error. So it's impossible that he would make such a decision.
So you see the problem? So all of the evidence points at the opposite. It's never been a problem. It's been codified in law, and it is inseparable from the religion. But look about what he said. You see how he said it? What I process when you say the Prophet is an infallible human being who makes no mistakes, where everything is perfect, it's like, yeah, it's like they have programmed you to, every time that you think Muhammad, you're thinking Jesus is perfect, absolute perfection, absolute sinless, everything is great. Anything they say is bad, the other person is wrong, even if it's in our traditions. He's creating his own religion. This is something that we see with Muslims. You see when Muslims say, no, that hadith is da'if. Oh, no, you are not interpreting this right. We have the receipts. They have programmed into them those words. That's why even he said, this is how I process. Every time that you say, Muhammad, this is what I process. This is what I process. It's like what you are processing is a lie, according to your traditions. In a way, it's true. Is the foundation of all of this was at once upon a time Jesus, but it was hijacked very, very early on, and now you're stuck with a warlord, but you've been told that he was basically like Jesus.
So it's impossible that he would make such a decision. And plus, the issue of Aisha, you have to weigh it against the society and the dates around her. She was born after her sister Asma, and she died before Asma. And I have it in a study, which I can definitely send you. She was either from 18 to 21 years old. There is no Muslim consensus that Aisha was 3 or 6 or 9 or 15. There are more popular opinions because there is a state behind the publications promoting them. Yes, that I accept.
Yeah, the hadiths are actually very clear. And it also says how old she was when the Prophet passed away. And that was 18. Okay. And they were married for 9 years. So this is something that happens a lot in Islam. And again, if you've seen the shows that we have about the holes in the narrative, you will see all of the different tafsirs, all of the different explanations, all of the different interpretations of any single verse. Because the goal, as you know, is to make the book divine, so excusing things. So what they are left with is a ridiculous amount of explanations about everything. So you have every single story and its opposite. So if you want to find one hadith that tells you something different, trust me, you're going to find it, because it's everything. It's a ridiculous thing. But what then you get is to pick and choose. The thing is, when you have all of these hadiths that they even contradict each other, and they are all sahih, that means they are fabricating stories. They are all unreliable. But when people then starts to pick and says, okay, I'm going to take this one because it looks nice, that is not the way to do science, right? That's not the way. Obviously, with Christian apologists, they will bank on that, and quite rightly so, by saying, so you have this hadith that is sahih and it says this. Are you going to deny it because of another hadith? You just destroy all of the hadiths if you deny one. So that's the actual problem. But yeah, of course, you can actually find a source here that will be a bit vague, but there are sources that are very clear. And the age, as I said, it has not been disputed.
But again, with all due respect, if you put a book in front of me, a history book, and you tell me this book was authored by a very respected man, you know what I'll tell you? I'll tell you with all due respect, Brother Patrick, I know you gave me a book. You put a book in front of me, but God gave me a brain.
That's very well said. But if you have a brain, maybe you should start exegeting the Quran in the way that you said before, which is matching the verses with other verses, and stop reading Muhammad into those verses, because someone has told you that those verses are about Muhammad. When you read the description and what it is actually being said, you realize it has nothing to do with Muhammad. Again, go to Surah 58, verse 22, where it says that those who follow Allah and His Messenger were given a spirit. It's like very clear. This was actually taken from a Judeo-Christian tradition, right? So this whole thing, yeah, you have a brain, but you have to use it. You are actually using it to pick and choose, to still make Muhammad divine. And that's not the case, because that's not what the sources say. So you don't get to actually pick one random information here. It's like the whole thing. You've seen Christian Muslim apologists, Awandis, when they will go to the very, very clear verses in the Quran, they will ignore those, and then they will go to a very vague verse and use that one to come up with their own interpretation. And what do we say? Well, the Wagandists, they are just lying, right? We have the same from the tafsir writers and from the hadith writers and from imams, apparently. That's not the way to do it.
And I can do mathematics, and I can understand exactly when she was born, where she was.
If he can do mathematics, he needs to look at the verses that say that when you distribute inheritance according to the Quran, you have to distribute 112.5% of the inheritance, because the Quran cannot do maths. Maybe that's something to look into.
It's not hard to work it out.
Well,
18 to 21.
Okay.
Final verdict.
According to your opinion, is 18 to 21, right? According to your opinion.
But I have Islamic sources for it.
But those are also sources.
But they are.
So the two sources are debating each other.
Again, a source is measured and is judged based on the author and based on the credibility of the source. So when you're telling me that she was, it's narrated that she's 6 or 9, I understand where that comes from. And I can also tell you that book is banned in certain countries.
Yeah. So anyway, so this is what we've got, that when you have to make your guy who, according to the sources, is really awful, to make him be divine, because you've been told that a prophet is an infallible human being that cannot make mistakes, then you are just going to deny all of the sources that tells you that that piece of information that has been programmed into you is false. Or rather, they've programmed you the image of Jesus, and they've told you our warlord is like that. It's like it doesn't flow. Anyway, I actually thought I was going to get through the whole video, because he's going to talk about Mary. He's going to say something very interesting about Mary and about the conquest of Muhammad and a few other things, but we are out of time for today. So maybe we will do something else soon, and I will just unpack the rest of the video, because it is very, very interesting. Maybe in the next one, I will just finish with the stuff that he said, just correcting every single thing that he says, and show maybe some sources and explain a little bit more. So we will do that in the next one. For now, we will call it a day here. So I hope you have enjoyed this breakdown. Let me know the things that you agree on or disagree on the comment section below. Stay tuned for the next ones and for the next panel shows that we're going to have here as well on the channel. A lot of things are going to be happening in the coming months. So stay tuned for all of that. Until then, I hope you have a very nice week and God bless you all. See you all soon. Bye-bye.
There is only one Quran, right? Every Quran in the world is the same. That's what you've been told. You have been told a lie!
26 of the Quran.
26 different Qurans!
There are 0 Dawa guys apparently left on the planet who are willing to defend Muhammad in a debate.
Everybody can go and read it. This is a book full of mistakes in Arabic, in the grammar, in the spelling, in the pronunciation.
Whoever wrote the Quran made an error because they didn't quite understand what was written in the 7th century in the Torah and the Injil.
Stay away from these translations. They are propaganda.
We know that stories about Muhammad were made up on an industrial scale.
What in the world is this Injil?